Hey, 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 happy healing and becoming. You guys, I am so excited for another episode of Healing and Becoming, where you guys already know what it is. We believe in lifting as we climb, turning our trials into treasures, living a life to inspire and not impress, opening up and allowing God to fully restore us, and loving as if we've never been hurt. When we land on that thought of loving as if we've never been hurt, this includes our business. This includes our partnerships. This includes mainly ourselves, loving as if we've never been hurt. And as me and my beautiful guests were doing a little bit of pre talk, we both have come to the conclusion that a lot of the reasons why we can't do this beautiful soul work that God has called us to do because of one nasty little word that starts with an F, and it ain't the one you thinking of. It's fear. Fear literally limits us from being, doing, and having everything that God has called us to have. And I think we're going to get really into the nitty gritty of things because unfortunately, sometimes it's our religious institutions, sometimes it's our family institution. A lot of times, let me not even say sometimes. A lot of times, it's the programming that we received from the places that are meant to serve us, are meant to, they don't mean us any harm, but because there's already fear, like woven, however you say that word, into the foundation of these structures, our family structure, our religious structure, our just, everyday life. Fear is so woven into everything that we do that it becomes just a normal thing and we don't even recognize it. I want to tell a quick story before I bring my guests on. And I believe I've told this before, but it's coming up, so I want to share it. I lived in this area for many years, grew up in this area called Chino, and it's in California. In this particular area, there are tons and tons of dairies, like cow farms all over, right? And so as a little girl, I didn't smell what other people smelled when they came into Chino. It was completely normal to me. As I grew up and became a mom, there were a couple of spots that I loved as a child that I wanted to bring my kids to. Now, since growing up, my kids and taking my kids, a lot of the dairies have gone away. However, that smell is still there. The moment we enter into the city, my kids say immediately, "What is that smell?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh my God, it smells so bad. It smells like poop." And I'm like, "I don't smell it." That's when I realized that a lot of us have bias by the things that we see, by it's called actually confirmation bias. So because I was in this space for so long, I did not recognize the smell. I did not recognize the bad parts of it. That's the same thing that happens when we're in institutions, when we're in families. We don't even know that it's bad because it's such a part of what we do every day. I got a sneaky feeling that my guest knows a lot about what we're talking about. So I don't want to delay this anymore. I want to bring in my beautiful guest, Miss Jamie White, for her to share more about this topic and for us to literally just be led so we can feed you today. So, what I want you all to do, grab your pens, grab your journals. We're about to get to the coaching without any further delay. Hey, sis, you have a minute?
Absolutely. Oh my word. I think this is going to be an amazing discussion.
Oh my gosh, Jamie, I cannot wait. Tell the TWT family more about yourself.
So I'm 44 years old and I actually just celebrated my birthday and my mom actually died at 44. So this is a very
Mm.
big year for me. And it's part of what led us to be living in Mexico instead of staying in the same stock structures that we were in, because after she died, it took 20 years for me to change. but but
Wow.
I realized that there was something there that she hadn't been able to do for herself that I knew I needed to do for me and for my family, and leave the family structures that we were in and the religious structures that we were in that no longer fit us. And so we're in Mexico now. We have 6 boys. And my husband and I have been married for over 20 years, but we've also allowed ourselves to sort of divorce the first version of our relationship and say,
Mm.
you know, it's okay to choose someone else, something else, if that's what you want. And in the end, we chose each other again. So we're working on marriage 2.0. But
Oh my God.
five of our six kids came with us to Mexico. So that's what we're in the middle of.
Wow, that is a beautiful concept, just
Mm-hmm.
divorcing the version of you all's marriage
Mm-hmm.
that no longer served you. And I know initially people listening, they're like, wait, what? Are they doing some weird stuff? Are they into? And it's like, no, you guys have remarried the best version of yourself. Tell me a little bit more. I know we didn't plan to go here, but tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about that.
It actually is a huge part of what we've gone through. And it was when I was around 38 years old, I went to him and I said, something's got to change. There's got to be something we're missing that we don't know. And I'm just not interested in this cycle of drama that we're in. And
Mm,
I didn't know. I didn't know at the time. I was blaming him. I was blaming my dad. So my dad was also my boss. I grew up in family business. And I was blaming them because I thought that the men needed to lead in terms of I couldn't lead more than them. Do you know what I mean? Like in positions, in different positions beyond them. And so I felt like I needed them to expand when really I was feeling the pressure internally to expand. And so I started turning my tension outwards. I started, I feel like now I could say that I sort of exploded and they got hit with the shrapnel. It really wasn't their fault. like, but so anyway, in the beginning, we didn't know that we needed to let go of the first version and choose
mm,
something new again. So we tried so hard to just keep making that version work or keep, finding out what's wrong, like what do we need to fix? And instead, what really started to shift things for us was when we let ourselves say, okay, what is it that we really want? What is it that how have we changed? How have we shifted? And where are we holding ourselves back or thinking we have to hold ourselves back? And what really happened is that both of us were able to get clear on what we want and realize how it actually merges so beautifully and what we're called to do together. So obviously we've done a ton of work. This is not an overnight process.
wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, and in so many areas of our lives, that letting go is
Oh my word.
right. Oh my gosh. Like, I feel like that should be the title of this podcast because I know we're going to talk about how you had to let go of some beliefs that you had, how you had to let go of even some probably business practices.
Mm.
As you were talking about the marriage and men leading, I know that this is like fundamental in Christian beliefs. We have been really misinformed on a lot of things when it comes to like the man leading. Now, I am a little bit of a traditionalist when it comes to certain things. However, I am learning things that is literally blowing my mind, and cognitive dissonance is happening all over the place. Because what I've learned is in scripture, a lot of people don't know this. In scripture, and I'm going to take a particular story that a lot of people are probably familiar with. It's Ananiah and oh,
Sapphira?
yes, Ananiah and Sapphira. So that couple, that married couple, when you read the story and when you read, like really study the scriptures, so there's times where it says the man's name first, and then there's other times where it says the woman's name first. And I
Yeah.
recently learned that in their culture, the reason why they do that, how when they pronounce one first, is because they are the leader. So the woman was the leader in ministry and in certain things where the husband was the leader in their business because they were both business owners and ministers. And when I learned that, it blew my mind, Jamie, because I was like, how come they're not telling the people this? They're just telling the woman we need to be submissive and we need to blah blah blah. When in return, yes, yes, but both and right. The woman also was leading so many parts in scripture where women's name is announced first. I mean, we could look at Deborah. We could look at, I mean, we could go on and on with that. So I love that you started with that because even in my marriage that has been a point of contention, and God's like, I called you to lead in this area, and I'm like, but the people, the pastors, the folks, and he's like, no, 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 what did I say, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about just business and how faith has shaped business and maybe how you've had to relearn or unlearn some things
Mm.
to get to yeah.
Yeah, unlearn. Well, first of all, I love that you said unlearn because what I say now is that we soul school our kids. But when we first started this process, they were in the traditional school systems. And then when we took them out, we did virtual school. And then after virtual school, we chose to unlearn and then what was called unschooling, I guess. And then we decided to go all in on soul schooling. So they get to choose what they want to do every day. And I did the same thing in my personal life in a lot of ways. And I grew up believing that those that had wealth were those that had real estate, those that made good decisions, invested in real estate. And so we had duplexes and we were trying to make that happen. And we were doing what I thought we were supposed to do in order to, make good decisions. And I basically recreated what I thought was my parents' version of what was good and right. And it
Mm.
was not the right fit for Kevin and I. Like our gifts are not in rentals and real estate. And so we were doing all the things that we thought we should do without leaning into a knowing and understanding and following our heart and understanding
Mhm.
that really that's the roadmap and who are we as people. So we actually use human design and gene keys now with all of our kids to kind of say, okay, who are they as people instead of
Mhm.
what is it that I think and I believe, and letting them, giving them the space to be who they want to be. And it's just incredible what's been
Mhm.
happening by giving them the space to be who they're called to be and not challenging that and going, I know best.
Mhm.
It's take your hands off the wheel, let go, and let God. Like they say the saying, but it's a little bit different when we actually try and do it.
Tell me about it, right? We love to say these colloquialisms and these like
Yeah.
Christianeses that I like to call them, but really doing it because
Mhm.
as you were talking about letting your kids, human design, right? The word of God says, I believe it's in Jeremiah, I formed you in your mother's womb. I knew you before, like all this stuff, right? So that means that God shaped the personality. However, we dump our
Oh,
ideas,
yeah.
our beliefs, our and onto our children. And when they don't go the way, I actually had a conversation with one of my girls about how she will never be happy if she's trying to please me. And she's
Mhm.
15, right? So for a parent to say that is like revolutionary, right? Because I know I believed I just got to do what my parents told me to do, but I want my kids to be really soul happy and I want them to really walk the path that God designed for them, not that Tamika and Paul has designed for them. How do people do that though, Jamie? Like that is so
Mm.
scary. That is so scary.
It's interesting because, well, I'll share a couple of things. One, we grew up with the boys cliff jumping, but I never cliff jumped. And I would share the pictures, and people would always comment on Facebook, like, where are you? Where's your jump? And I was like, no, I don't need to jump. But I did it recently, partially to overcome the fear, and to step into it. And the thing that I realized is there's such a small space between where we are and where we're called to go, but it
Mm,
is so uncomfortable. And it's only, 2 feet this way, 15 feet this way. but being willing to let go and being in that awkward place is a big deal. And the other thing is I feel sometimes like this is normal for me. I will say that when we just started saying yes to the things intuitively, one at a time, that felt right. And when the kids started going virtual, there was so much peace in our home that it was sort of like, why were we doing it the other way? And then we sold our rentals and people questioned us, like, what are you doing? Why are you sure? And we were like, we don't know. We just feel called to something else. And then I left the family business and we left the home church that we've been a part of. And we just kept saying yes to the little steps along the way so that when the call to Mexico came, we were ready. And we
mm,
knew we had no idea that we were going to Mexico. We had no idea. We started saying yes to things one at a time in 2019
mm,
and letting go of the fears. So one of the books that we require our clients to read is The Illusion of Money by Kyle Cease.
mm,
And I really believe that that's a part of how we got here too, was just really sitting with imagine you're almost homeless. Like imagine you're sleeping on a park bench and you have nothing to your name, nothing that we sort of give significance to. I mean, I love looking at spreadsheets and a net worth calculator, and I can be super nerdy about business and finance and wealth and acquisitions. But at the end of the day, I was like, who am I if I'm just homeless and on a park bench? And I really sat differently with me, where I realized I could let it go. I could let it all go, and that I was still enough. But
Mm,
it's a big deal.
That is so good. Gosh, that's so good. I have been so much of what you're saying. I'm like, okay, this podcast was for me. Because there's so much that I've been just unraveling, and this idea of really auto suggestion, right? And God does this to us all the time, but we don't pick up on it, right? And that's what saying yes to those little things are. That's why when you go on webinars and when you go on trainings, they're like, put a one in the chat, put fireballs, right? Because they're trying to get you to say yes to the bigger thing
Yeah.
that they want to do. But God does that to us all the time. Like just yesterday, it was like, get off of Instagram for the day after I had sent all these DMs to these influencers. So now it looks like I'm flaky, like I've just, but I'm like, you know what? I really don't want to do that. I'm doing that because that's what industry tells me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel like I have to do to get to this next level, when really it doesn't feel right. It does
It's
not.
so hard to unlearn that though. It is hard. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm here to lead and to pioneer and to wake up and to awaken and all those things. And it's still hard.
Hmm.
So just to give you a little memo on that. But if I look back, I said yes to 6 kids, right? And when God asked, after we had 3, I had lost my mom and my sister. And so I wasn't willing to do anything permanent. My sister was 16 and my mom was 44. And I just realized, something could happen to Kevin or I, and something could happen to one of our kids. And I just don't want to make some kind of permanent decision. So I really, just let that be. But I was mentally tapped out and maxed out. I mean, I was like not happy. And 5 years later, gave it some space, and I felt like God was tapping us on the shoulder. And then my husband said the same thing, and I was like, oh my word, I don't think I'm ready for this. So it took a couple more years for me to really be willing. But then knowing that when we say yes, it's about who we become in the process, and
Mm,
who I became is so worth it.
mm, 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 mm.
As a mom of 6 boys, it's totally different than a mom of 3 for me.
I could only imagine, me and Paul have 8 together, and we're a blended family, so it's a little different, but I just know, like, oh, so much of what you're sharing, even from the cliff diving, giving our kids that permission to say yes. Like, I feel like when we say yes, it's a permission slip for our kids to say yes to their bigger dreams and for them to do the things that they were ultimately called to do. So you help business owners. I love that book, by the way. Make sure that you share that with me so I can add it in the show notes, because I am a bit of a nerd, and I do audio, so I don't actually read the books, but I listen to them. And I definitely want to put that one in my library. But you have the beautiful blessing to be able to help entrepreneurs really believe in themselves. Tell us a little bit more about that, Jamie.
Well, I want to go back to the book. On Audible, it is 4 hours, so it's an easy listen. Easy list. Listen, that's the word I'm looking for. And it looks like one of my little guys is going to come into
Hi.
the call here.
You know what? I was just getting ready to say your babies are so good because
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's a 4 hour listen on Audible, and he's a really great person to do Audible because he's actually a comedian. So there's a lot
Oh,
to think about. Yeah, but he's actually really good. So I'm just gonna need a minute
don't
here.
worry. Nope, nope. I would love keep going, Jamie. You probably heard the dishes being washed in the background. Listen, folks that are listening, this is real life. And one part of that I've learned that I had to let go is the fear of
Mm,
being seen unprofessional, right?
mm,
So often people think that it has to look a certain way and it has to be polished and your aesthetic has to be perfect. Before we are business owners, before we are wives, before we're any of these things, God had called you to be a mama. God called me to be a mom. So I was just getting text messages about something that I'm supposed to be on. And I'm like, no, today's my son's football picnic thing. I'm canceling everything else. I didn't cancel this today because I'm like, I already canceled with Jamie once. I forgot. But we are mamas first. So I love when my kids show up in the shots. I love when my guests, professionalism is a lie. And it is rooted in some crazy stuff. I don't even want to get into what it's rooted in, but this is professional, right? Because we're showing our babies, hey, look, I'm able to do a podcast, run a business, and still tell you to get up and wash the dishes. So
yeah.
you're fine. I love it. And he's a cutie as well.
Yeah, thank you. And what you're saying is true. When I first started this lifestyle of being at home, being on Zoom, I thought, oh no, like stay aside, stay aside. But yet part of me was like, well, I don't mind when other people do it. And like I want this to be, but there is something in us that is just I didn't even try for it to be there. Like it's so trained that we're just like, stay in the corner, stay in the closet, stay hidden. So and then what I found with little kids, he's 5.5, is that literally what they need takes such a short time span. So it's okay. So anyway, thank you for that.
Of
And
course.
so just to be clear with the Audible book, there was something else that you had asked me before that. Do you remember
Um,
what it was, or any other new things come up?
well, I know that we had talked about you. So you said that this is a book that you have your clients read. I
Yeah.
wanted to know more about how you help your clients to step into their big belief and who are like their mission and goal in life.
Well, first, what I'd love to say is if anyone else is like me, it takes more time than I want. It takes more investment than I wanted. It takes like, ah, and also to create some awareness around there's different phases and stages in life that I don't think, the way I grew up learning it was sort of midlife crisis. I don't believe that today. I believe that what we were sort of sold was a bill of goods, like
Mm,
be a certain way at 18, create a good career, and then, retire at 62. And what happens in the entrepreneurial world is because we're such a small percentage of the population and there's not a lot of training specific to entrepreneurs, is that what I see is we compare ourselves to the wrong people. And
whew,
we compare ourselves to, the W-2, 200,000 a year, I'm going to retire at 62, when entrepreneurs really have no intention of retiring. We're
mm,
creating, we're leaning into our calling and we're in our being. And so we're constantly reinventing ourselves. We're constantly evolving and we're learning like crazy. It's not just like, well, I became an accountant and so now I have to stay an accountant. And so there is so much unlearning that, that
oh
needs to
my God.
happen for entrepreneurs to be able to step into the fullness of their gifts and trust that this is where we've been called. And really anyone that's in the entrepreneurial world, the idea of life in business. I mean, I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. I worked on the job with them. I vacationed with them. I went to business conferences. I mean, I did the home show, the Parade of Homes. Like, it was a life and business merge that was so
Mm.
beautiful. And so then I would ask other kids, what do your parents do? And some of them would say they didn't know. I was like, how do you not know? Like, this is our life. And so it was something that I really did love growing up. And so I want to normalize entrepreneurship, but where we're not comparing ourselves to what we've been trained to believe is true. And I
Mm.
do believe unlearning is a huge part of this the first step.
It is definitely the first step and it's constant. So the learning and unlearning is constant. Sometimes my day looks like me just learning and I think like how is this productive? Like how can I prove that I deserve to be paid for today or and it takes me like I literally have to say like, oh, if I do this sales funnel, if I do this, then I can go. And it's like, no, because the learning, if I was sitting in the office and I watched and I had to do trainings on OSHA or whatever, I it would I would still get paid. So why am I, but it is definitely this comparison that
Yeah.
happens. How do you help your clients? Like, how do you help them
Mhm.
with those things that are tough? Like, this is deeper than mindset.
Mhm.
Everyone says, well, work on your mindset. And yes, we work on our mindset daily. That's a daily thing, but it's something within our soul that has to shift. How do you
Yeah.
help your clients do that? Or is that like a them and God thing? Let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about
So what I believe in is the power of one-on-one. And
that.
again, if we think about the way that God created us, there's something that I really feel is not, and I'm not super scientific. I've read some scientific books and I'm sort of like, yeah, whatever they said. That's not my lane, but I feel it to be true in my experience. When I work with one-on-one people, there's space that other people can hold and there's an energy shift that happens. And I think it's this, being, if we can be fully present, if we can create space for other people. And one of the things that we've learned is that oftentimes we're so full of our own emotions, our own thoughts, and stuck in
Mhm.
our head that we don't have space for other people. So
Mhm.
in Believe Crew, we've brought together intuitive people that have learned how to have and hold space for other people. And there's something powerful literally in that energy of one-on-one work. So in the world of I still believe that here in Mexico, 3 years from now, people are going to be saying that the Mexicans are going to be saying, would you like a pina colada? Like, I think there's some things that are not changing. But one of the things that I really sort of hope is happening, but also kind of feel a shift is in the power of the human. And we have sort of two, not really opposing sides. How do they continue to work together? This AI that is almost intuitive sometimes, like
Mhm.
scary level, becomes a mirror of us. And yet there's something that we've been designed with that computers cannot replace. And so when
Mhm.
you say, how do you do this and how do you help people? I really believe that it's not just Believe Crew, but it's finding people that believe in you and aren't fear based and
Mhm.
have the capacity to hold space for you and your dreams and your calling. And it's really about the opposite of fear based. It says in the Bible that perfect love casts out fear. And
Mhm.
when my son offered for the military a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
I knew that he was following his calling. Like, this is what we teach our kids. And so I was shocked by the Christian community that was like, oh, you know, good luck. Hopefully that's, like, there were so many that didn't think that that was his calling. And
Wow.
it's like, don't put that on him.
Wow.
How do other people know what our calling is? And
Mm.
so there's this idea, in a way, what I say is you already have it inside of you. You already have your gifts and talents inside of you. So in a way, you could say, well, I should just be able to meditate by myself, to pray by myself. But I really don't believe that's the way that we've been designed. So
Mm-mm.
for me, Believe Crew is about that one-on-one soul level care and space from a not fear-based. and, and I will tell you, I've actually kind of fired my husband, kind of, because in family business, I think we get fired and rehired pretty regularly. But when there's fear that shows up, like, please don't bring that here.
Yeah, yeah,
Do what you got to
100%.
do. Come back when you're in a
When
place
you're
of love.
ready.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, so good. Gosh, so many directions that I want us to go, but I know that we're getting close to the end of this episode. This was so good. Just really for me, just really validating the
Mhm.
journey that I'm on, the process that I'm on. A lot of times when people tell me, like, tell me about how your process works. It is so hard for me to articulate it because just like you said, I'm like, it's just something you gotta feel. Like you gotta
Mhm.
experience it. Like once you experience it and you feel it, this is why I give those free clarity sessions. This is why, brief commercial break, while I'm having the masterclass called for more this Friday, July 18th. If you're listening, click the link in the show notes to register because it is something that it lives in you. And what I know for sure is we do our best work. God created us for community. He created us for togetherness. And when we come together with like-minded people, even people that may not be like-minded, Jamie, but they have this idea, even that not like-minded also helps us because it helps
Mhm.
us to lean into who we truly are and to stand on what we truly believe. Or sometimes there are paradigm shifts that need to happen. And so it's okay, when we think of sandpaper, it's rough. It doesn't feel good,
Right?
right? It's like, ooh, I don't know about this, but eventually
Right.
it smooths us out. So I love what you're doing with the Believe Crew. I love the work that you are called to do. How can the TWT family get in contact with you? How do we learn more about your products and services?
Thank you. And I invite anyone that's interested to come to the Riviera Maya area in, Cancun, Tulum area where we live. There's something very healing and special about
Mm.
it. When I go back to the US, there's a level of anxiety that's just not something you can take out of the air.
I'm
So
gonna tell my husband, hey, listen, Jamie has invited us. We need to go make
yes, that's right. The invitation is open. So many beautiful places to check out here. But also, believetrue.com, our website is in the process of being redone. So it's not, it's based on when we lived in Wisconsin. Um, and also on Instagram and socials. My name is Jamie White, but it is like this plain vanilla name that's everywhere. so so look us up under Believe True.
All right. So all of the information will be in the show notes. You all, let's continue to learn and unlearn and
Mm,
cast away fear. Let's just continue to do it so we can step into who God has truly called us to be. TWT
mm.
family, thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. Make sure you guys go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, like this podcast, share it with 3 friends, put it in your social media stories so more people can hear this beautiful conversation and know that they're not crazy. They're just called for more. Until next week, TWT family. Bye-bye.